All right. Welcome, everyone. This is our value-added dairy processing webinar, putting the 4 Ps of marketing to work for your diversified dairy. Like I said, my name is Margaret Quaassdorff. I'm the dairy management specialist for the CCE Northwest New York Dairy, Livestock, and Field Crops team. I work as across the 10 counties that we have right now, from Niagara County to Seneca County, working on dairy management. And today I am joined by my colleague, Katelyn Walley of the Southwest New York team. And we're going to enjoy a presentation by Katelyn coming up. And I'm going to share some grant opportunities and some trip opportunities that we have with you surrounding this topic of value-added dairy.
Thank you, Margaret. As Margaret mentioned, I'm Katelyn Walley. I'm a farm business management specialist with Cornell Cooperative Extension on the Southwest New York Dairy, Livestock, and Field Crops program, where I'm also the team leader there. We're a partnership between Cornell University and the 5 CCE associations of Erie, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, and Steuben County. I've been working with Cornell Cooperative Extension for 10 years now as a farm business management specialist. And so I'm really interested in business planning, marketing, and have seen a broad spectrum of marketing initiatives that have worked really well and some that haven't worked quite as well. So happy to share some of my experiences, what research tells us, and kind of this foundational idea of the 4 Ps of marketing, which sounds really intuitive, right? But then when we're faced with actually having to do it, it can bring up some questions and opportunities for reflection. So what we're going to talk about during our lunch hour here today is a little bit about the actual project that Margaret and I are working on that this webinar is a part of. Then we'll get into some conversation about why bother diversifying as a dairy producer. We'll talk about those 4 Ps that I mentioned: price, product, promotion, and place. And then I'll provide you with some future references for creating a marketing plan. So you're definitely not going to be able to write your marketing plan at the end of this hour. But what my hope is that by the end of this hour, you'll be convinced that you should consider writing a marketing plan if you're interested in value-added dairy. And then Margaret's going to share some, as she mentioned, some really great opportunities for funding and grants, and then some information about our value-added dairy tour. We will save time for questions at the end, but if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to use the chat for those, and we'll either scooch them to the end or we'll address them as we go. So a little bit about our project that we're working on. Margaret and I received funding from the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center to create a project or a program that focuses on diversified dairies who are interested in on-farm processing or value-added dairy. That funding provides opportunities for us to do a few webinars like the one that we're doing right now. We're going to be hosting a tour to Eastern New York to go visit facilities, which Margaret will share some more information about that later. We're also going to have opportunities for discussion groups and creating some resources for folks that are interested in value-added dairy processing. At the end of the day, this program's goal or opportunity is to explore, provide opportunities for you to explore diversifying your dairy, seeing if that's a right fit, if it's not a right fit, or what you might have to do to make it a better fit. And the goal of all of this when it comes to diversification or on-farm processing is to potentially improve your profitability and your sustainability. It's not a guarantee, right? So it's not the best fit for everybody. But we're hoping that this program helps to provide resources for you to make that decision around whether or not this initiative might be a good fit for you. So why bother diversifying, right? If you are currently a dairy producer, it's tough, right? The profit margins are narrow, but you're doing it. You're doing the thing. You're milking cows, you're getting a paycheck twice a month. And it's kind of the question of why not just continue status quo? Why try adding something else to diversify your dairy farm? So today we're going to focus all about diversifying your dairy farm, and the whole point of this program is looking at that diversification through incorporating value-added dairy goods or dairy sales or on-farm processing. But in general, any type of farm can be faced with this opportunity to diversify. So at the end of the day, it might seem like diversification is a good idea, a bad idea, right? We're going to share some information so that you can make that choice yourself, because it's going to depend from farm to farm. Farm diversification at its core is a way to avoid putting all of your eggs in one basket, and that pun is fully intended. So if you think about a dairy farm, you are producing milk. That milk is picked up by the milk truck. It is sold to a co-op or with a direct contract to a milk processing plant. And then that's it, right? Like that's your hands off from there on. You're selling that raw commodity of milk and it's going to a processing facility. The advantage of that is that you're not trying to market it. You're not trying to do something else on top of feeding cows, milking cows, taking care of everything that you need to take care of. The disadvantage of that is that you don't set your price, right? If something were to happen to the co-op and they decided to drop you as a supplier, then you are out of luck, right? You just put all of your eggs in one basket and that basket could fall. So diversifying your farm, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're diversifying it into on-farm processing, but just diversifying your dairy farm in general, is a strategy for you to separate out your income streams and potentially survive a really kind of fatal blow of something like losing your milk market, not being able to sustain commodity prices anymore, or lack thereof in our current season. So farm diversification is a way for you to kind of spread out your income streams and spread out your potential risk that way too. And it can come in many different shapes and sizes. So farm diversification that we focus on in this program is installing on-farm processing or creating an on-farm processing system, value-added sales. But dairy farm diversification doesn't have to look like that, right? So it can be a variety of different ways that you're diversifying. And essentially it's increasing the number of enterprises that you have on your farm. And enterprises in this case just means the things that you do, right? So if you are a traditional dairy farmer, your enterprises are selling raw milk to a co-op or to a processor through a direct contract, right? You might have a small enterprise of beef sales, so selling your cull cows, selling calves. You might have a small enterprise of selling excess corn silage to the neighbor farmer, but your primary enterprise is selling that milk. When we think about intentionally diversifying the farm, we're going to set up a system, set up a new enterprise that incorporates selling a new product, selling to a new market, or utilizing a new production practice. So what this might look like for a dairy farm, if you diversified in the way of selling a new product, you might use excess corn silage and excess housing to take those beef on dairy calves that you're breeding and that are hitting the ground and finish them out and selling them at the auction, right? That's a new product. So you were just selling milk. Now you're selling milk and intentionally selling beef cows. A new market, you might be selling milk to a co-op and you might be approached by or have the opportunity to create a direct contract with a milk processor. So that would be a new market. It might be your co-op is selling milk and they find a alternative partnership that they can do with another co-op. That's a new market. And then new production practices would be doing something that you're doing on your farm, but doing it differently. So where we see this sometimes is if you are a conventional dairy farm and you transition into organic production, right? That is a new enterprise because you're doing something differently and potentially diversifying your farm. The other thing about diversification and why we do it is that diversification reduces income variability. And at the end of the day, it is a very strong risk management tool. So the way that it does this is it reduces your production risk. It reduces that factor of putting all of your eggs in one basket. And if you trip, you lose everything. If your co-op drops you, you lose everything. So if we're able to diversify our farm, diversify our dairy farm, we're reducing that aspect of production risk. It's also another way to spread fixed costs that you might already have over several commodities. So for example, if you own a combine to harvest crops to feed to your dairy cows, that combine is not running as often as it could during the harvest season. So it's an opportunity to take that fixed cost of the combine. And if you wanted to enter into a custom harvest agreement or rent it out or et cetera, anything like that, that's a way to diversify your income variability, because you're going to get income from a commodity or from a piece of equipment that is sitting there not necessarily doing anything. And that kind of ties in as well with utilizing your resources through the year. Where I think about this when it comes to on-farm dairy processing is if you think about your employees. So if you have employees during the summertime that are actively in the tractor, in the truck and trailer, they're hauling stuff around, right? But you want to keep them in the wintertime because they're good employees and there's only so many times you can change the oil and maintain your tractors. What's something that they could do? They could be helping out with a on-farm processing system. They could be helping out with winter markets. There's other things that you could use. So you're utilizing that resource of your employee, but you're using it throughout the year. The other thing that advantage of diversification is you're able to have a range of products to increase market access. So this idea is a little bit tougher for our commodity dairy producers, but if you think about a market garden farm that is selling vegetables at a farmer's market, and then they also start to bake bread. So now they're going to the farmer's market and they're selling vegetables and bread. As a consumer, if the consumer was going around the farmer's market and looking for vegetables and bread, and then they find the farm that has both of those things, they can go there instead of making two separate stops. So that's kind of what the idea of range of access looks like. So for a dairy producer, if you did start to do something along the lines of value-added dairy processing, maybe you started to rent out a facility and make cheese, you could then diversify even further by incorporating on-farm processing and bottling your own milk. So now you have cheese and milk. So people can look at you as the one-stop shop to get their cheese and their milk. That's essentially what that concept means. So if diversifying your farm is so great, why isn't everybody doing it, right? And there's a lot of reasons why diversification isn't the right fit for folks. As we increase or change enterprises, we change what we're doing, we add more things that we have to do, we're adding additional risk, we're adding additional work, we're adding additional opportunities for things to go wrong. So if we think about anti-diversification, right? So we are not adding enterprises to our farm. We're getting really good at one thing. So we're getting really good at milking cows. As we continue to diversify, we get mile wide, inch deep. So we get less good at milking cows because we've got to do all of these other things. The other thing with diversification is that it's really risky, particularly in the first year. So it's a new enterprise. It's something that you haven't done before. You've got to retrain yourself on how to add this new thing. There's a lot of startup costs. There's a lot of risks along with getting what we're going to talk about today, your marketing plan out there and doing work for you. And those first year losses can be really high. Also, there's some concerns about market access or longevity challenges. So if we think about like hot trends in the agricultural industry, sometimes things are trendy and then the bubble essentially bursts and you are now left with a whole bunch of equipment, investment, and no way to recoup that cost because the market is essentially saturated. And then the last kind of like, is this the right idea for me? Thing that I mentioned to folks, and this isn't meant to be a bad thing, but it's just a solid recognizing the fact that not all farmers should be out in public marketing their product, right? So if you think about why you got into farming, usually you don't get into farming because you want to be at the farmer's market every Saturday, right? Because you want to be on social media making live videos, because you want to be out meeting with restaurants and bars and trying to sell your product. You farm because you really enjoy growing food for people. So if your personality is not somebody that can handle new markets, can handle a lot of different things all at once, and you just want to do one thing really, really well, then diversification might not be the best fit for you. And that's okay. So that's kind of the foundation of what farm diversification looks like, why you might incorporate that, why you might not incorporate that. And what we're going to transition into talking about now is marketing. The reason that we're talking about marketing at this point in the game is when I'm working with farms that are looking to diversify, one of the very first things I have them do is create a marketing plan along with their business plan, but really focusing on the marketing plan. Even before they do research on how would I make this work, what would my product look like, and that's why we're doing this topic right now before we continue doing our value added tour, additional discussion groups, and additional resources. What you want to do is know where your product is heading before you start growing your product, before you start making your product. So having a business plan, a marketing plan, gives you a clear picture of your farm goals and that vision and that clear vision to help ensure viability and sustainability for your business. If you don't have a business plan, if you don't have a marketing plan, then you're going to be subject to like those knee-jerk reactions, or this kind of fear of missing out and chasing the next big idea, right? So I pick on a lot of my farmers, and one of the things that I say is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So just because you can put in a on-farm processing facility on your dairy farm doesn't mean you should. Just because you can start raising beef cows doesn't mean you should. Just because you can double your herd size because the neighboring farm's going out of business doesn't mean you should. Having a business plan in place, having a marketing plan in place will help you answer that. Should I do this question? Does this decision, does this diversification opportunity help support my farm business goals? Where the business plan and the marketing plan overlap is that business plans include a marketing plan. So if you don't already have a business plan, I strongly encourage you to put one together. And if you need help doing that, please reach out to me and I'll connect you with whoever's in your region, or if you're in my region, I help farms with crafting their business plan. A large portion of the business plan is your marketing plan. So again, considering, prioritizing, thinking about first, how am I going to sell my product before we get caught in the weeds of how am I going to grow or tend my product, right? So both of these are great opportunities to clarify your goals. Business plans include marketing plans, and both should be considered a process and not a product. What do I mean by that? When you first started farming, somebody might have said, hey, put together a business plan. And you might have gone online and searched business plan, fillable business plan, PDF printable business plan, right? And that's a product. So a business plan as a product is something that you're printing out, you're laminating, you're giving it to your banker because you have to. You're giving it to FSA because you have to. You're including it in a grant because you have to. Business planning as a process means that you're taking the time to reflect, to think, to intentionally decide what are my goals for my business. Marketing plans are the same thing. So if you go online and search how to sell my milk, right? How to sell my cheese, you're going to get a lot of ideas, a lot of opportunities, but none of them meant that you did the work to come up with that yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to come up with those ideas yourself, but it does mean that you have to spend some time thinking about things and going through that reflection process. So I would encourage you to think about writing a business plan, to think about including your marketing plan in that as a process, a thinking exercise, a planning exercise, and not necessarily, I'm going to print this out and all of my problems are solved, because that's not what they're meant to do. So marketing plans, again, are a key component of your business plan. They're a large section of your business plan. And what we're going to focus on today is one slice of a marketing plan in this bigger pie of a marketing plan and a business plan for your farm overall. At the end of the day, having successful marketing means that you had a solid marketing strategy. You knew the product that you were going to sell and how you were going to sell it before you started making that product. And this leads into having a really strategic and intentional marketing plan. So why do we need a marketing plan, right? Why am I stressing so much about having your marketing plan in place first? You've probably heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. And sometimes in agriculture, we approach the things that we grow and the things that we make in the same way, right? So I might really like raising sheep. And I might figure if I invest in raising sheep and I've got them there, all I have to do is put a sign out front and people will come because everybody wants this. And that's just not the case. That's not the case. Farms are more successful in diversifying when you're thinking about your market ahead of time. So the idea of if you build it, they'll come, that's false. You need a plan to sell your product before you have the product. Which leads me into this smaller slice of making a marketing plan, which is the 4 Ps. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes talking about the 4 Ps of marketing and what that might look like for your diversified dairy. The cool thing about this concept is that it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're trying to market. The 4 Ps are steady across everything that you're trying to sell. It's not even specific to farms, right? Like this is any type of business that's selling a product is going to consider these 4 Ps. You're also going to find that because I am a stickler on this should be a process, not a product, I'm not going to give you here's your 10-step process to have a perfect marketing plan, right? Like here's your perfect marketing strategy. The reason for that is that there's a million different ways to farm and all of them are right. And there's a million different ways to sell your farm products and all of them are right. The best fitting marketing plan for you is going to be one that you came up with, one that you put the work in to do. So what I'm going to give you are some considerations, some questions, and some resources so that you can go through creating your marketing plan around this concept of the 4 Ps. So anybody that's taken a business 101 class has seen this before. Actually, not this one. This one I made because for 10 years now, I've been using somebody else's version of the 4 Ps and I just hated how it looked. So finally today I was like, hey, I can make my own. So this is my own. So the 4 Ps of marketing are product, price, place, promotion. And we should think about each of these as surrounding the customer. So if we want the customer to buy our product, we need to make sure that we are tailoring our product, our price, our promotion, our place to the customer, which is why they all kind of surround the customer. At the end of the day, your potential customer has to be the center of this equation. And then when we write a marketing plan, when we go through the process of creating a marketing plan, we're going to consider these variables of product, price, promotion, and place. So let's start with the customer because I just told you it was the most important. When you're creating a marketing plan or thinking about how you're going to sell your product, it's really easy to say, I'm going to make a product that everybody wants to buy. So every single person on the planet is my target audience, right? Because of course, like that's how you're going to sell the most product, by making it something that everybody wants and needs. Unfortunately, everybody else is doing the work to make their marketing plans strategic and target different customers at different stages in their lives. If you go with a marketing plan that's one size fits all, we're going to attract everybody, you are going to attract nobody because it's not special for anybody. If you try to narrow in on who is your target customer, you're going to attract your target customer and then other people who share characteristics with your target customer. So when you are putting together a marketing plan, an exercise that we use is we have you make up a fake person that represents your entire target customer, rather than saying, I'm going to sell this product to everybody. So some of the things that we research and consider. We want to research outside of our farm, and we're going to collect information that's going to help us form kind of who is this perfect customer, who's our target customer. So this includes the customer's wants, what types of products are they looking for, the customer's ideals, right? If they buy this product from you, how will that change their life? Does that help them meet their goals? We look at the customer's income level. We look at their needs, their shopping behaviors, and where they're located. So particularly with dairy products, because they aren't shelf stable, right? We can't ship them necessarily. They can't sit on customer or can't sit on shelves for an extended period of time. It's something that we have to move and keep fresh. Location is a big thing. And it's not as easy as just saying within this circle, there's enough people to support a value-added dairy business. It's more about how far are those customers willing to travel? Because a lot of times our farms are not located where there's a lot of customers, right? So if we're thinking about marketing our products through on-farm stores or roadside stands, then we need to think about how far are our customers willing to drive. The flip side of that, if we want to travel to our customers, we need to think about how far am I willing to drive? How much time am I willing to spend? How much money am I willing to pay somebody else to deliver my product to where the people are? This is an extensive market research process. So you can actually work with companies. You have to pay them money, but you can work with companies to collect all of this demographic information for you. There's also publicly available databases about here's the age distribution in your area, gender distribution in your area. And you can work with organizations like the Small Business Development Center who can partner with you to help do this market research for you. But if you want an example that you can do on your own, just using your own brain and your own imagination, think about who your target audience is. Who do you want to sell your product to, right? Is it moms? Is it younger kids? Hip people? Is it not hip people? Is it your neighbors? Is it people from far away? What does their income level look like? Are they looking for experiences, or are they looking for taste? Are they looking for product, right? So just taking some time to think about who is your perfect customer, and as narrowly as you can, to the point that you give them a name when we do this exercise. And then you can tailor the rest of your marketing plan, the 4 Ps, around that customer. So internally, some of the things that we're going to think about are, what's your value proposition? So why would people want to buy from you? So you have to be able to answer that question for yourself. So thinking about your target customer, why does this target customer want to buy from me? And again, you really want to pick one specific customer, one specific demographic that you're going to target with your products. It doesn't mean that you're not going to sell your products to anybody else, but it does mean that all of your marketing efforts are going to be very effective for that demographic versus trying to do a one-size-fits-all. So now we're going to go through each of these 4 Ps. The first P is product. And unfortunately, this is the one that we spend the most time on. And the rest of the stuff just kind of falls into place. But product is what you want to grow or make for sale. What are you going to make? So in this case, I'm going to make cheese. I'm going to bottle my own milk. I'm going to make yogurt. That's my product, right? Externally, we're going to research and consider, what does the consumer want? So if I say I want to make cotton candy flavored cheese sticks, right? Are customers asking for cotton candy flavored cheese sticks? Is that something that our target customer wants? And then what's the market capacity look like? So is what I want to make something that everybody and their brother is making and selling in my area? Or is this something new that I can capture the market for? And then internally, we're going to think about, what's my elevator speech? How do I describe my product in a really quick, succinct way? And then the challenge question that I encourage folks to think about is your product that you're trying to sell the food or your story, right? When we work with farms that are really successful with value-added production and direct sales, a lot of times it's your story. People buy because they like you. And your product is there and it's good. When you're selling to wholesale accounts, a lot of times that's flipped. They care more about your product and your price points than they care about you as a family, as that social media picture perfect story. And then your considerations for your product are the quality of your product, the features, the brand name, packaging, logos and design, services, and the most important consideration based on research is taste. So when you're writing your marketing plan, you would actually sit down, you would ask yourself these questions, you would write it down for my product is this, consumers want X, Y, and Z. I've thought about it, and this would be my elevator's pitch, and here's what this product looks like. Then we move into price. Price is really interesting because we all think that we have to be the cheapest around. And a lot of times that can bite you in the butt later on. So when we think about price, we're thinking about what I'm going to charge for my products. Externally, I'm going to research what's the economic status and purchase power for my target consumer. What are my competitors charging? And what's the market access, right? So if I want to differentiate myself from my competitors, do I need to set my prices lower? What do I need to do so that people will buy from me based on my price? Most importantly, though, when it comes to setting your price, a lot of times we're worried about what's going on the outside. What are my competitors charging? What is Wegmans charging? What does this look like externally? The more important thing is actually your internal price mechanisms. So what is your cost of production? Because it doesn't matter what Wegmans is charging or what your neighbors are charging if you will lose money based on your production practices at that price. So what we do here is we go back to our business plan, we make budgets, we do enterprise budgets, we make estimates for what our cost of production is, and then we look at that and we say, is this a price that I can get out in the real world, out in the market? And is this a price that's going to be sustainable for me in the long run? Do I have enough money left over to pay myself, to write myself a paycheck? And then some of the considerations when it comes to price, or some reminders, is price can indicate quality. So it might be kind of our first reaction to make sure that we are cheap, and that's how we're going to win over customers, right? We're cheaper than our competitors. First, if your cost of production is higher than that, then you just are paying for the opportunity to sell a product at a loss, right? You're not making any money for yourself. But then secondly, price can indicate quality. So if your target consumer is somebody who has disposable income and values high quality products, and you undercut your price as a way to get into the market, then they're going to look at your product as inferior because it costs less. So prices can indicate quality depending on our target consumer. The other thing to consider too is that if you wanted to move product by doing a sale or discounts and you set your price too low, that when you do a sale, you're going to lose money. You're never going to be able to offer those sales, right? So adding in a buffer for future sales and discounts, and then adding in buffers for future needs and changes. So it is a pain in the butt to change your price every time the gas bill goes up, right? Or every time the feed bill goes up. If you anticipate the highs and lows of our input costs, then that's a consideration for setting your price to help reduce the back and forth later on. Our third P is place. Place describes how and where you'll sell your product. So when you're writing your marketing plan, when you're thinking about, is value-added dairy the right fit for me, you're going to consider place. The research that you will do externally is around how far will your customer travel again, that convenience factor that we talked about, and then what type of experience does the customer have by going to that place to purchase your product, by coming to your farm, going to the farmer's market, going to the store in town. And then internally, you're going to consider, what are my preferences for selling at different locations? What can my personality tolerate, right? Can my personality tolerate sitting at a farmer's market? Do I feel comfortable having people coming to my farm? What's the time commitment look like for each of these different places to sell our products? And this is something called the marketing channel assessment, which we're going to include that resource in the chat for you, and then in our follow-up information. So marketing channel assessment essentially looks at all of the different places that you can sell your products and considers the price and profit potential, volume potential, risk, lifestyle, all of that. It's a topic that I normally give a 2-hour conversation or presentation on itself, so it's definitely something to look into. And then our last P, which is the one that people assume we would spend the most time on, but we really don't end up because we're doing all of our research ahead of time, is promotion. Promotion looks at how you will advertise your product. So if you're creating value-added dairy product, how are you going to advertise it to your potential customers, to your target customer, right? Externally, you're going to research your customer, see how are they consuming information, how are they making purchasing decisions, and how can I influence that? And you're also going to look at what does the industry do as a positive intention or a good intention to promote the product. Internally, you're going to consider that question again of, am I selling the product or am I selling my story? And then your promotions are going to highlight that decision that you're making or what will work the best for your situation. The nitty-gritty part of promotion, the things that we think we need to work the most time on when it comes to creating a marketing plan, are what do advertisements look like? What types of engagement do we have? Are we on social media? Are we using printed papers? Are we in some other type of promotion where folks are engaging with us? Do we have involvement within the community to help spread our name amongst the community? What types of customer service do we provide? Do we have special events or samples? Samples are particularly important in value-added dairy, particularly around cheese. Most consumers will not buy cheese without tasting it. And this is research, there's research to back this up. So all of those things that you've probably already thought about, right, come into play under this promotion, or this fourth P of promotion. Okay, so as I mentioned, in an hour, we're not going to teach you every single thing that you need to write your marketing plan, but hopefully we're giving you enough of a little bit of a snapshot and overview to encourage you to do that. And it doesn't have to be for value-added processing. So it can be for any product that you are creating. And it doesn't have to be for just direct sales too. So even farms that are selling commodity products, you can still create a marketing plan to reflect your options for selling those products and how you can go about making sure that you're still profitable. Some additional resources that I'm going to put in the chat while Margaret is talking are the Small Business Development Center, which I mentioned before. They're a really great organization. They're not catered to agriculture, but they're catered to general businesses and have access to market research and are really astute at helping create marketing plans and business plans. Our program, Southwest New York Dairy, Livestock, and Field Crops, I'm creating a self-directed curriculum to essentially go through this business planning process and this market planning process that will be out later this year. So it's nothing that's helpful right now, but know that we're doing the bare bones and recording videos for it right now. Additionally, other groups that might be of interest are your local planning departments, Cornell Cooperative Extension, definitely Chamber of Commerce, and other small business groups. So I know in my community, we have a small business owner kind of club. I guess club's maybe not the right word, but group, collective. We meet once a month, we talk about issues, and it's really helpful to see what other small business owners are doing. And don't discount yourself as a farmer, because a lot of these same issues everybody's experiencing in multiple different industries. And then 2 links to resources that you might find helpful. Penn State has an excellent ag marketing and sales database of different articles, fact sheets, webinar recordings. They're my go-to when it comes to topics related to marketing. And then Margaret and I, along with our coworker from the Cornell Dairy Foods Extension team, Anika Giaforte, we did a webinar last year that was on value-added dairy production that spends a chunk of time thinking about marketing, but then also provides an overview for the topic entirely. Okay, so I'm going to put these links in the chat, and with that, I'm going to, oh, I have one more slide. I'm going to do my conclusion, and then we'll turn it over to Margaret. So key takeaways from my 30-minute ramble. Diversifying your farm is a way to possibly improve your profitability, sustainability. There are situations where diversification will work. There are situations where diversification will make it worse. You should work with a business planner, a business advisor to help evaluate or just sniff check and see if this is a good idea. You need a business plan with a marketing plan to succeed. Even if that business plan isn't written down and laminated and in a binder, you need to go through the process of business planning the process of creating a marketing plan before you add on new enterprises, before you create new products. So knowing where you're going to sell your products before you have to sell them. And then marketing considers those 4 Ps that we gave an overview for: people, place, product, and promotion. All 4 of those go into play with your marketing plan, and you can leverage each of those ideas to help sell your story, sell your product, and reach that specific target consumer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Margaret.
All right, sounds good. So, as Katelyn said, we need our business plans. We need all of this preparation. And luckily, there are some different types of resources out there that can help us with these different steps. Oops, our slides are going away. Here we go. Okay. So the first one that I want to mention, especially if you are a dairy in our target region in New York, Cornell Cows Pro Dairy has a program called the Dairy Advancement Program. And that one offers small grants for small to mid-sized farms, so farms that are typically under 300 cows. And the one that I have highlighted here on this slide is the one that is for business planning. And that's to help you work with an advisor or business advisor of your choice and come up with your business plan, or to work and start to think over your business plan. So there are 2 different levels of funding depending on if you have ever applied for the funding before. And we just want to make sure that you are aware that if you are a dairy in New York, this is something that is open to you. It is open, applications are open and accepted on a rolling basis as long as there's funding available. So this is something that you can start at almost any time of the year. Okay, great. Thanks, Katelyn. So the second organization I want to talk about or highlight is the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. So the same place that provide funding for this grant has a bunch of different other grants that are available to both dairy farmers and dairy processors. Some of the ones that they have available currently for dairy farmers are the Dairy Food Safety and Certification Grant, and projects through that program will support increased production safety standards with the goal of accessing new markets. So this is to help increase marketability of dairy products. And so this is helping fund things like assessing technical assistance. So if you need different classes, if you're interested in taking different classes on food safety, as you're working through this business plan, as you're working through thinking about adding value-added dairy to your business, this is some funding that could help you. The details are going to be on the website. So all the different requirements and stipulations you can read on your own by going to the website. But this one's open right now and it's due pretty soon, coming up next week, February 22nd. And you can see the range of award amounts there. So this might be one that you want to keep in mind after you've gone through your initial business planning, knowing that this funding is available. Another one that over on the right side of the screen that I wanted to mention is the On-Farm Milk Storage and Handling Grant. This one isn't necessarily directed towards value-added only, and you'd have to double check to make sure that a project would fall under the requirements of the grant, but it has everything to do with equipment for improving milk storage, handling, and energy efficiency. So maybe something like that could help you out with different points on your farm. The exciting one that was just announced is the new dairy processor startup grant. And these grants are to support the startup of a new dairy processing capability for existing farmers. It's also being offered to new co-packing capabilities of other processors, but this one is not open currently, but is set to open this summer, and awards will be given from $15,000 to $75,000 to start new dairy processing or in the startup process. So if you get a little bit further along, or if you're working and collaborating potentially with an existing dairy processor, or know somebody who is more interested on the processing side, Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center also offers different opportunities for dairy processors. This is where you can get more into the dairy marketing and branding, get a couple funds surrounding that program that opens in April 2024. And then there's also some money available for like dairy product trade show assistance. So if you're going out there and you're already a processor and you're exhibiting and selling value-added dairy products at shows, there's some money available there. So these are some things to keep in mind. There's also the Dairy Processor Innovation Grant, and this one is again towards processors thinking about different and diversified products within the dairy industry. So the next one that we look at for opportunities to help us along in our marketing could be the Northeast SARE program. And this one, you have to use a little bit of your imagination. They have a great program called the Farmer Grant Program. And these funds are typically opened up, or the application is typically opened up in the fall, and you'd be notified in early spring if your project was funded. This is a great opportunity and a good way to conduct some feasibility and market studies surrounding what type of products or what type of business you want to add for dairy processing. These are not for starting or expanding your farm business or for capital costs. So these, again, market research, feasibility studies, that kind of stuff, Northeast SARE has funded in the past. And then the last one that I want to talk about today is the USDA Value Added Producer Grant. And this one is currently open. And this year, the paper applications are due April 16th and electronic applications are due April 11th. This one is a little bit different. The previous ones are focused more on dairies in the Northeast. So it could be a lot out of all the states in the Northeast. This one is a national grant. So it's a national competition. You'll be competing across the country for these funds. They have two different types of grants available. They are planning grants and working capital grants. So and these also, you have to, again, look at the stipulations of each of the grants, but I think this one also requires you to match 100% of the funding that you are given. So these funds can be used for planning activities or working capital expenses, like I said, and examples of planning activities include, again, conducting feasibility studies and developing business plans for processing and marketing the proposed value-added product. And examples of working capital expenses could include processing costs, marketing and advertising expenses, and some inventory and salary expenses. And they have a lot of information on the website. There's a lot to look over with a lot of these different grants. But if you are in the Western New York region, we are available to help you go through and review some of these if you are interested in using them to benefit your farm or your value-added business in the future. So with that, we want to also make sure, Katelyn and I want you to be aware that we are hosting a value-added dairy processing tour March 13th and 14th. Registration is open now. It's supported by this grant that we have. So the cost is $100 per person, plus 2 dinners, incidentals, and all the cheese and ice cream and everything else that you want to buy along the way. So bring money for that, bring a cooler for that. This is open to farmers in Western New York, and we're going to leave from Batavia, New York on the 13th and return by the evening on the 14th. We're going to visit a couple different stops along the way, including both farms and businesses that support on-farm processing. So our initial registration is going to close by the end of February here, but if we have space on the bus, we'll be taking a few more into March. So register as soon as possible so that we can get you on the list and get everything planned out. And we're looking forward to having you.
Okay, so with that, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Again, we just want to acknowledge that this funding was provided through the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center for us to offer webinars like this along with the tour, and definitely bring a big cooler for the tour because there's some really cool spots that we've got planned out.